Welcome to Eastman's Hunting Journal podcast. I'm your host, Ike Eastman, and today we have another special guest on the podcast that I think you're going to learn a ton of stuff from. One of the things that I try and do every episode is get some meat for you guys that either help you with hunting or help you in life or help you with whatever. And today I have Charlie Zamora. So Charlie is a really unique individual in the space. He's new to hunting. He's been duck hunting. He lives in California, but he's done some really amazing things for men. Number one, he's a huge fitness advocate. He owns gyms. Him and his wife run some gyms out there outside of Sacramento. But also what he's done is he talks about how he's helping his community with the law enforcement, the fire department, the sheriff department, and he's building programs for those organizations, much like an NFL trainer would for that NFL team. It's really, really cool. But he has a really interesting perspective on life. Also, I go through some of the questions that you guys asked to be asked of him, stuff like nutrition, stuff like what's the best workout, things on story that he has, a really unique story about his involvement or his interaction with law enforcement at 19, being a dumb 19-year-old kid like we all were, and how that one decision affected his life, the rest of his life, including what he's doing today. And one of the best things that I've ever heard put together is his TED Talk answer. So check out that and check out the rest of this podcast as well as the rest of our podcasts. I have some really, really good ones, and there's always good nuggets for your drive. Stay safe out there and keep listening. Are you an avid hunter looking for the perfect trailer to haul your gear? Look no further than Team Lodge trailers. These trailers are made in South Dakota and for the ultimate hybrid of a camper and a trailer. With the ability to haul your side-by-side ATV, dirt bike, e-bikes, and more, you'll never have to leave your gear behind. They are extremely sturdy with no wind shake or movement when someone is walking in the camper. Plus, they are waterproof and designed by hunters who actually use the product. The bear-proof base camp ensures to safety while out in the wild. You'll also love that these trailers are outfitted with the only accessories and the features you want. Premium components are used in every part of the setups, making Team Lodge trailers the best choice for your outdoor adventures. Charlie Zamora, you're well known in the CrossFit world. I think you're also extremely well known in the training of law enforcement, which I think is really cool. And I hope to get to that story down the road here a little bit, but kind of give us a little bit of a background on, where you grew up and where, how did it transpose or outlay to what you do now?
Yeah, I've this morning I woke up fairly early because I was thinking about being very intentional in this conversation, and I actually had turned on a podcast that you had done with Evan with Black Rifle and got to hear more about your story and your grandfather and your father and the business and your, hunting and all of that. And as I went through that, I think that's really what helps individuals figure out kind of who they are, is where they came from. And so for me, my background is my grandfather came to the United States from the Philippines, and he had to be the top in his school to be able to get a working visa to come over, and did everything obviously super legit back in the day. And he had to leave my grandmother, my uncle, my father, and my aunt, and he had a briefcase and $300 and the suit on his back. And he really figured out the American dream, which is hard work and effort pays off over time. And so as I grew up kind of hearing those stories about my dad's father, it was very inspiring that that was kind of a recipe, right? So like for any goal that you have, there's going to be a receipt. And then that receipt, it's the work that's necessary to earn it. And so I just had a very good example with him with what that actually looks like. You want to talk about adventures, right? And I was hearing about your family and the adventure mindset. And I was like, my family wasn't really big on hunting. It's something that I definitely have gotten into thanks to get some good friends, and I enjoy it. But I still feel like I have that adventurous spirit, but I couldn't imagine being as young as my grandfather was. That's an adventure in itself. Flying somewhere, English is your second language, and you have to figure it out to get everyone there. And thank God he figured it out and did a great job and instilled those hardworking principles in my father, and which passed on to me and my mom's father. Man, amazing dude. Guy I was named after. His name is Charles. I'm Charles, aka Charlie. He goes by Chuck. So he was, you know, extremely successful, but he was just an entrepreneur. So same thing, dirt poor, was in the army, got out, was driving trucks, doing everything he could, working multiple jobs, same recipe, same receipt, hard work, success. He was actually one of the first people, he was the first person to do a live telephone auction. And it used to happen at
Really?
a flea market. And he basically pioneered what QVC is now. So, I mean, Wall Street Journal, the whole nine. And ended up losing everything in a bad business deal right before they went public, and then rebuilt himself in the insurance company. And so, with me being in entrepreneurship, I got to see also, and also listening to some of Baker's story on your podcast. If you have the recipe of hard work and that tenacity of finding a way, those moments don't define you in that circumstance. What defines you is how you respond. And so, with both my grandfathers being really instrumental in like my upbringing and my background, it's really cool that you get to call upon like that's why I have my last name, or that's why I'm here, is because they did the hard work that was necessary for me to, from where they came from, live more of a life of luxury. But you know good times make weak men, apparently, right? That's one of the quotes, and I did not
Right.
want that for myself, and I did not want that for my boys. And so I, in a weird way, have to artificially find these stimuluses to try to keep that work ethic high, which hunting's been a great thing for that because it's very hard. Um, I mean, I'm limited on my knowledge so far, but so far it's been a kick in the ass, but it's fun. But also entrepreneurship and business building, and that is something that's really been instrumental. And my father, good man, but very, very black and white, do it or don't do it. Not a lot of empathy, good man, but it made me a certain way when I approach problems, which is figure it out, and so I guess I have to owe a lot to my family and those particularly strong men in my life to kind of lay that foundation of what the winning receipt is. And so I would say that's kind of what helps steer who I am now and the decision making. I've had my ups and downs on being an idiot, and we can get into that. But you always go back to what you were raised with, right? And that's in the Bible, right? Training a child in the way he should go, and he'll go back to it. There's definitely times where you can veer off that path, but as long as you know where north is, you're going to be fine.
So your grandfather came across, which in my opinion is the ultimate adventure. I mean, just the unknown, and everything counts on every decision you're making every single day. Not that you're not going to make bad ones, but learning from them and not making them again. What were some of the things, some of the hardships? So first off, when was this? What time frame was this?
Oh, this had to be, if I have this right, it's got to be late 60s, early 70s. And
Okay.
unfortunately, I'm not 100% confirmed on those dates because a lot of times I'm so enthralled with more of the story. Dates kind of get a little shaky, but I knew he had just finished, school, and he was then teaching at the college he was at, but that led him to get the opportunity to go. And he's one of 11 kids, dirt poor. So like,
Oh, wow.
it's a huge, and they live in poverty. So
Yeah.
to see what he's doing now is pretty cool. But yeah, a lot of challenges there.
So he came over in the 60s, let's say the late 60s, and everything on his back, $300 in a suitcase, and every decision that he made affects what's happening and what has happened down the road. Is one of the things, what are some of the things that you learned from his generation and then obviously passed through your dad's generation? It had to be that decision-making skill.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that I'm starting to understand more now. I was actually born the same year y'all started the company. So I was born in
Okay.
'87. So I'm 36. But, I don't think that I'm young. I don't think that I'm old. I'm maybe somewhere in the middle, whatever. But as I kind of as I kind of look at it and I start to see what led to that ultimate goal for them was small daily disciplines and then a clear identification of what it is that they are trying to accomplish. So I talk about this a lot with everyone that I work with, but for every goal that you have, like we get back to this, I guess I started with it. For every goal that someone has, there's a work requirement to get that done. If you're not willing to do the work, then you didn't really want the goal. And I think my grandfather knew what the goal was, and he knew that he had to be disciplined in his approach to be able to execute, right? And if he didn't execute, it's at the cost of his family. And I think that was a really big driver, obviously. But how do you recreate that when it's, like I said, now I'm living a life where, I guess everyone's perspective is their own reality. I have hardships. It might not be as hard as other people's, but you still have to find a way to navigate through those things. And a lot of times when I speak with law enforcement, um, anyone that works in the military, first responders, I'm not sworn. I never served. I spent a lot of time with these individuals, and it's a hard thing to kind of touch on when you don't have that real life experience. I've never seen someone die in front of me. I've never been in combat. But what I do know is this is that there is some control. I will never minimize how someone feels. But at the same time, you have to remind those individuals you're in control of how long you want to stay there. And it really comes down to developing the right tools, getting the right support system. And so bringing this back to the origin of your question is there was a clear identification of what was necessary to win, what was necessary to get that goal done. And what I've observed is being disciplined to have that goal be bigger than the distraction is what led to success.
That's really insightful. So the goal is bigger than the distraction, and doing the work. And you mentioned something early on that it's the small disciplines. Can you expand on what do you mean by the small disciplines?
Yeah, it's interesting. We have a lot of people in my space or just in the, platform space in general that will say a lot of things about how to accomplish goals. And there's a lot of things out there. And I don't want to be another voice that's just shouting things. I think that leadership is done by action, and that's why I challenged myself this morning to wake up at 2:30 before this podcast and get a big body of work done because if I'm demanding of other people to listen to what I'm saying in some capacity in a form of leadership, I think that there needs to be the action of follow through, right? And when we look at things that become repeatable, whether I'm advising someone on nutrition or training or just goal setting in general, there's this opportunity to have like the dreamer's approach. And it's really, really awesome. And then we have to have the realistic approach. So say someone comes to me and they want to be focused, we'll use diet, the brand new 2024, right? So a lot of people are like, hey, I really want to clean up my diet. I really want to eat well. I want to do these things. I would say, okay, what does your diet look like? And they'll start explaining their diet. They're like, okay, I'm just going to go and just do this, right? And they've never done anything really before, and it's in the extreme. I'll be like, I don't think it's a good idea. You said you currently drink soda, right? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, just switch to diet for a month and just make that change. Then once that small discipline becomes a habit, maybe you don't want diet soda anymore. Maybe you try just switching over to water or a coconut water, something a little bit more healthy, and then try to develop that habit. So we not only try to create small change, we want to make the small change repeatable. But once the individual finds success with that small change over time, it becomes habit forming. And the habit then becomes something that you just do. Then you pick the next thing. And as you look at stacking small disciplines, we're not looking in the micro, we're looking at the big picture. So 10,000 foot view in time, year, 2 years, 3 years, the 10,000 hour rule, 10 years down the line. Next thing you know, you're a completely different human. The trajectory of your entire family is different. Generational change happens because you make the changes that are necessary, and what is seen by the individuals in which you're raising, or the wife in the home that hopefully you're leading well, they're seeing that I'm not just talking about it, I'm living it out. And that, I think, is one of the most powerful things, is generational change. And it starts with the small decisions. At the end of someone's life, there's a eulogy, and there's this part where there's a start date, which is the year you're born, and the day that you die. In the middle is a dash. What's most important is how the dash was ran. And I think that's something that is important for people to understand, that small disciplines are big wins, because the acquisition of that and the habit that creates is really monumental. And I just think people minimize that. Just consistency.
So I've never had it put that way. So what you're saying is you use the nutrition thing. It's the 1st of January now. Everybody's doing New Year's resolutions and working
Sure.
out and trying to be healthier. Is one of the things that a lot of people do. I've never had anybody say, "Don't do it all. Just do something." That's really interesting. You don't have to cut sugars out, cut pop out, cut booze out, everything else that is harming your body every single day that we do. You don't have to do all of it. Do a couple of them, make it a habit, and then move on. Make it a plan for the small steps of each one of those things, so that in 365 days, it is a habit that you don't have any of that, or you've changed it to something that you're accepting. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying, and I think that's the biggest takeaway. Now, individuals that have been in this space, or been around fitness for a long time, I will caveat that and say, like, right now, I'm doing World Carnivore Month because it's topical, it's fun, and I try a lot of these things out because others are doing it, so I want to know how it feels and what they're going to go through. But I've been a fitness professional pretty much my whole life. It's all I've grown up doing. So sometimes when we choose things in the extreme, the question is this long-term repeatable? So anything that's done in an extreme generally is not. And that's why we get back to little daily disciplines lead to long-term change. And um, getting back to habit forming, once it becomes a habit, it becomes kind of a characteristic trait, because we know you're going to continue doing it. And ultimately, that's going to shape like the destiny of where you're headed.
That's interesting. So one of the things that we do on my podcast, I ask, and I don't know if you saw this or not, but I ask our social media audience, hey, what are some of the questions that you want Charlie to answer? And one of those was actually, what are some healthy nutrition habits that go overlooked? What are some of the things that you see out there that people don't put enough stock in?
Yeah, I'll double down on daily disciplines and choosing small things, but the one area that I personally have the hardest time with. So even though I'm a professional in this space, everyone's still going to have the things that they falter with. Probably the number one most beneficial thing anyone can do is get restorative, restful sleep.
Sleep.
I tend to break that rule all the time. Um,
I do too.
yeah, so it's that, but that is going to be one of the primary answers, and it's something that um, for the most part, people have control over. Our first responders sometimes don't because of shifts, and I work with fire as well, and they can get a call anytime. Or if you want to think about this, it's like outside of those jobs, if you have something that's a 9 to 5, I've always asked someone. This is good because it'll touch on screen time, which is a big issue with a lot of people right now, and I'm included, right? And I have to work on this as well. So I'm not exempt from these same issues. But what I've noticed is if I have a window of sleep that I need to hit, right, or I have an opportunity to be able to be resourceful or insightful with my time, really once for me, I got little ones, so like once the kids are down and after I've spent some time with my wife, maybe caught up on her day, whatever's going on, if I choose to do any activity outside of that that requires watching a show, playing a game, which I don't, I'm just throwing out there examples, and I have nothing against video games, I've just always sucked at them, and I'd rather just play someone in real life, but anything that is creating a distraction, the phone, the online stuff, all of that, every hour that you spend on that, that you could be getting restorative sleep, what really good is coming out of that? Generally nothing. And if you say, well, it's how I decompress, if you're asleep, you're pretty decompressed. So what you're really doing is you're creating more thought patterns and stress and distractions so that your restorative sleep is not as effective or insightful as it could be. So I would just challenge people like, they're like, how can you wake up so early? One of the secrets I don't tell a lot of people, when I can, I try to be asleep by 8:30. People think like that makes me, oh, you're old, you're missing out on these things. I'm like, what? Like a TV show? Like that's not aligned with my goals. And that all comes back to the beginning of this. What are your goals? If you want to wake up tired every day, but it's really important for you to be caught up on Game of Thrones, then that's your choice. That's fine. But don't come to me and tell me you have an issue with sleep. Your issue is not with sleep, it's decision making. You're deciding to stay up, watch TV, and not put yourself in an opportunity to get that restorative, restful sleep. And I think
Back.
it's that's probably like if someone's going to say, is it exercise? Is it nutrition? Is all these things? Really, at the end of the day, it's time management. That's I would say that's my main thing. Learn how to manage your time.
Back to decision making and goals. What is the goal? Obviously, your goal is not sleep. Your goal is to keep up on Game of Thrones, however that works. I don't know. I'm not a gamer either. I don't know. I don't understand it. I
Yeah,
grew up without TV, so I don't know. But that's really interesting. So sleep and decision making to once again focus on what that goal is. So we talked a little bit about we touched on what you do, but you have your hand in a ton of stuff. Doing the research for this podcast, and it's not, I wouldn't say it's not connected with a red thread, but it's pretty thin. I mean, everything from your TV show, the Driven Golf Show. How number one, what is that? Because I'm not a golfer and I don't watch TV, so I don't know. But so explain that, and then how does that connect to the CrossFit in your gym, and then we'll get into what you're doing with with first responders, I guess.
yeah. Um, a disclaimer before we start any of this conversation in this realm. Um, I'm neurodivergent, so I have ADHD, ADD, dyslexic, horrible at reading, spelling, writing, and I don't like verbally omitting that or speaking the truth because I'm big on like if you say it, you are. Certain things are just a challenge, and you just have to accept it and own it. But what I've done in the last probably 3 or 4 years is really deeply dive into like why it's my superpower. I've always known it is, but a lot of the things that I think I'm able to perform or do, one, it's by God's grace that I get to do these amazing things. But number two, uh, everyone on this earth is specifically unique. The way my brain works, the way it fires, the things that happen, there's probably potentially some chemical imbalances because I don't really require a lot of sleep. But at the same time, um, on the thread of adventure, my whole thought is always whatever I'm into, I want to find a way to do it and get paid. In the aspect that I don't want it to take away from our household, but I want to be able to enjoy something and have a good time doing it. And if by the byproduct I can make money doing it, let's do that. Right. But as soon
Right.
as it's not, this is horrible, but kind of as soon as it's not fun, I don't want to do it. And so that sometimes moves my interest a lot. But the vein has always been fitness. So um, the Driven Golf Show is interesting, and I'll try to be as brief as possible. So, how I got into that is I became fascinated with golf. I had a buddy of mine who actually lives now in Tennessee, and we grew up playing sports together, and we're very competitive. And he's a big golfer, and he was talking about it so much it just pissed me off. I'm like, I'll go out and beat you in golf. I've always been very athletically inclined. I've never been like the quote unquote standout, but there's not something I can't try and be decent at. I have that gift, right? I'm not saying I'm the starter or the world's best, right? I'm just saying that I haven't found something I can't figure out to some extent. So I was like, oh, I'll just pick up the clubs and play some golf. Uh, that didn't happen. I learned really quick that golf's very, very hard, and it's something you can't outwill and you can't outwork. right? So you can't just hit it harder. So everything I've ever done, I'm a kind of a hard charger. So most of the things I could just outwork it. Golf's a little bit more finesse. And what's been fun with that is that caught my intrigue that I wasn't good at it immediately. And so that's what got me into golf. And I was like, well, I want to get into golf because I want to learn more. I want to talk to more people because I enjoy conversations. So at one point, I'm like, I'm just going to start a podcast. And the people who spend the most time around professional athletes or strength and conditioning coaches, I understand strength and conditioning, but I guarantee no one asks to talk to them. But they're with the athletes all the time. So part of my goal was to use that vein of similarity, the thin red line like you're talking about, which was strength that I knew, and I immersed myself in understanding strength and conditioning for golf. I went out to Tyler's Performance Center out in Southern California. I worked with the best coaches that are out there and learn how they orientate, swing rotation and assess. And as I go through all this thing, I'm podcasting, having fun, talking to people. And I get on a podcast with a guy named Ryan Winther. And what caught my eyes, I saw a picture of him coming out of a cryo chamber. And this guy, they call him Man Bear. He does literally look like a bear. I mean, his lats are huge. He's just a huge human. And like the interest of like that guy looks strong and he's a world champion, has world records. I want to talk to him. So I call the guy and I said, hey, this is my podcast. This is what I'm doing. Like, I'm not really good at golf, but I want to learn more. And I'm thinking about starting like a YouTube channel where I just show people my experience of not being good and learning more about it. And after the podcast, he goes, hey, I really like your story and I like you. Do you have any background in like marketing or production? I'm like, I do. And he goes, well, I run a TV show and we have a 10-year deal. I'm on season 3. Would you think about coming on? And I said, yeah, like send me all the information. Let's do it. And then I went from just being a fitness expert on the show to co-hosting, co-producing, and now we're on like season 6 or 7 of the show. So 3-4 years in, and it's been a lot of fun and it's been a fun ride. And everything that I've ever done, I've had to kind of learn on the fly. So I've never been formally taught really in anything, but I've always told myself if someone else knows how to do it, it's not a will issue, it's a skill issue. I just need to learn how to do it. And then my drive, usually, whether it's a lot of sleepless nights, which is not a good thing, I will figure it out. I hate being outworked. And so if someone knows how to do something, I just tell myself I just need to acquire the skill. So that's how basically me being on the golf show has happened in the production, and got to work with some really cool people. I actually got to film out at Skyfall Reserve with Steve Rocks and Brandon Tucker out there, and Baker hooked all that up. But I was actually the next year came out and we shot a whole episode on waterfowl, which was really cool. So
So
yeah, it's weird.
so what's the paragraph for the driven golf show? What are guys learning golf techniques? Is it just a lifestyle show or what is it?
Yeah, so the show, I knew you would have some interest. I was hearing about you being on the boat with your rider during that transition of publication and
Yep.
learning that most of the platforms are they just change, but people want the same information.
Yeah.
So with our show, which I'm grateful to be on, Ryan's the one who brought me on here, but we're kicking butt, and we have Isaac Sanchez too, who was on the Big Break. He won that with Jerry Rice. So every year at the ACC in Tahoe, Isaac and Jerry are caddied up. So I get a big benefit. I get to hang out with Jerry Rice at least once a year, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Been pretty cool. But getting back to that, Driven Golf Show has turned more into a destination, dinners, dives, and drives, information, exercise, golf, life experience show. So it's kind of like that's what I do on that side of production is I find interesting people that we should work with, and then somehow we try to tie our show into kind of what they're doing, and it's more of a exploration and adventure, and then we get to kind of integrate those things. Of obviously the core audience is golf, so we always find a way to kind of put that in there. People are always interested in being able to hit the ball further or be better, so that's where I come in. And people like seeing really cool stuff. So I guess a funny story, I don't want to sit in golf too long, but a funny story is I've got to play some really cool courses like Monterey Peninsula Country Club, Pebble Beach, these crazy places in Mexico. And it's only like at the time, it was only like my second or third year in golf. And then I had all specifically that one buddy and a couple other buddies. They're like, you don't even deserve to be there. You don't know what you're doing. And it was one of those things too, where it's like, I would assume it's like, just getting into hunting, I get into hunting and Baker's like, hey, you need to meet Jamie, and he's doing this hunter recruitment project, and these guys out in Texas. So I get to go out there, meet those guys, and go hunt. And then I come back, and my friends are like, you did it again. You're with the best people, doing the funnest stuff, and you don't even know what you're doing. And I said, you know why? I said, I'm just having a good time being a good dude. Like
Yep.
I'm not,
That's right. I'm
I'm
being
not
genuine.
searching. I'm just being genuine. If these opportunities come my way, I'm in the relationship business. I just love meeting and exploring new relationships in the aspect of seeing what makes people tick and what's going on. I'm sure that's one of the things that's very enjoyable for you with this podcast.
Yeah, 100%. I really enjoy that because everybody has a unique story, and we do a really good job vetting people to make sure that they're legitimate and they're genuine, and then that they have something that can bring to the table, because the audience is really what this matters about. It's about what they can learn from you and what they can understand in an entertaining way. It can't be boring. I mean, this can't be a college, class, but it needs to be fun. So that's really cool. So you've driven golf. You have you and your wife own a gym, correct?
Yeah, I could give you the fitness side, and I'll try to navigate it fairly quickly.
Okay.
Okay, because I love talking, and I don't want to send you over too long here.
No, you're good. I don't have a
Okay.
stop, so you're good.
Okay. I'm the wrong person to tell that to. Okay. So the fitness deal, and I was talking with Scott about this a little bit, and we were talking, pre-production about some of these things, and I was thinking about something that I haven't talked about before, um, ever really out loud. I mean, I've done this a lot in person, but never on a platform like this. And so, um, mom and dad met in a gym. My dad was the fitness manager. Mom was the aerobics instructor. My father and mother got pregnant, got married, had me, had my brother. Then they get called out by my uncle, who's running gyms out in the Elk Grove area, because he was a fitness trainer that worked with my dad previously. So my parents come down here. They help manage now one of the biggest gym chains in the area, and they're like the initial team. Um, Life happens. They divorce. That's a 5-hour story. Anyways, we move on, but my dad always either stays in gym management or gym ownership. My mom's also fairly active, always been around sports and fitness. So my whole life, I've always like wanted to be in a gym. That's all I want to do is just train and being around people. And I knew probably at 8 years old that like I'm gonna own a gym one day. I'm gonna work in gym and I'm gonna help people. That's what I want to do because I watched my dad do it every single day, and I thought it was super cool, very interesting. And you know, life goes on. I start working for my father in some of his gyms. Then I go through this whole thing where it's like everyone only knows me because of my dad. So I want to start working some other places or try to do some things on my own. And so I start doing my own thing. My own thing was working with my uncle, who's also family, but he had his own thing. And then, you're developing yourself, you're learning these things. And then I ended up working at a traditional gym, like a Anytime Fitness, where I knew nobody. And as I'm working at that gym, I start doing really, really well. Um, Perspective for that industry in that time. And I'm there, I'm doing that. New ownership comes in, they keep me, they basically have me managing and running all of the PT. Then they want to start this thing called CrossFit in that gym. So I get exposed to CrossFit. And so now I am going to school because my wife said she wouldn't marry me unless I got a degree. And my grandmother, that was married to my grandfather, that used education to come to the States, believed I'd only be successful if I graduated. So I have like the two of the most important people in my life telling me you have to do it. I knew from the beginning I wasn't built for it. I needed to work, and I knew at 8 what I wanted to do. So I'm doing all this. I'm going to school. I finally transferred to Sac State after a long stint in junior college because I was working the whole time. And I'm at Sac State. I'm thinking I want to marry this girl that I'm with. I'm managing a gym, managing the PT department for the gym. Started that CrossFit stuff with that guy in that gym. And then I simultaneously started my own business doing boot camps in the park, knowing that eventually I wanted to do my own thing. And then I looked at that time management thing and I'm like, I feel like I'm really good at everything that I do and I'm better than most, but I can't do 15 things better than anybody. Like, that's not going to work. Um, so I need to consolidate. So I go to my wife, at the time she's not, and I said, hey, look, I'm being Jim the rest of my life. If you want to be with me, that's what I'm going to do. I apologize if that's not what you like, but like, I have to be honest. I know you want me to graduate from college, but I actually had a rough interaction with this one makes me kind of upset, so I'll have to watch how I talk about it. The last day I was in college, I had a substitute teacher at Sac State, and it was in a comms class, and she was having a conversation with the class and said, hey, you need to get a job for the state. You need to find some security, make sure you kind of like fall in line and do these things. And I have no problem with anyone that does that. That's not a problem. But I don't really believe that educators should be giving life advice on career choice. They should be educating on what the subject is. And it was really rubbing me the wrong way. And at that time, I just started my business doing all those things, and like everything was kind of tipping. And I looked at that teacher and I raised my hand. She goes, yes. I said, hey, I said, out of curiosity, I said, you're kind of picking one path for everybody. What about those that want to go into entrepreneur or do different things or explore different things? She goes, entrepreneurship, huh? Is that what you want to do? And I was like, yeah, didn't know I was already doing it. And she goes, yeah, well, if you start your own business, there's only one Steve Jobs and one Bill Gates, and you're not them. So you're gonna have to figure it out. I
Oh my
got
gosh.
up, I got up out of my chair, packed all my stuff. And if my dad was there, he probably would have beat my ass, but I've never swore, and specifically to a female and an educator, but I politely said F you in front of everyone. And it makes me emotional. And it's cool because I still know a girl that was in that class that will text me or message me every now and then randomly. She's like, you're doing it. I told all of them in that class, sorry, man, this is kind of rough. I didn't know I was going to act like this right now. I hate this. All right. I said, not only will I have one of the best gyms and like best programs ever, I said, I'm going to change the lives of many people. And I hope one day that you get to see this. And I left, right? So
Yeah.
I apologize. It's like my passion story, right? So I just like basically told her off, and I told everyone in the class, I'm like, you can do whatever you want to do. Like, I got all excited, like my elevator pitch to like, don't listen to this bullshit, right? And I got on the phone, and that's the day I called her. I said, I'm done. I'm out of school. I can't do this. I can't be in this environment. I'm not built for it. And I'm going all in. And so at that point, I transitioned into a good conversation, tough business conversation, but I had it at like 20, which is good, where I had to go speak to the gentleman that I worked at his gym. He already probably, I mean, looking back, he probably already knew where I was going because he's in entrepreneurship and sees this young guy basically running almost all the things for him. He figures this guy's probably going to do his own thing. But I
Right.
remember going to him and saying, hey, start my own business. I'm going to go on the other side of town. I'll sign a non-compete. I would not like to take anyone from this gym. I'm going to do my own thing on the other side of town. I respect you for what you've taught me, what you've done. I got to do my own thing. And he goes, all right, man, I appreciate that. He shook my hand to this day. If we see each other, he's very cordial. I don't know how he potentially really feels, but at least we had that man-to-man conversation. So I go all in, start my business. This is in 2010. I'm like 21 or 22 years old. And I go all in, sign a lease, get in, kind of like the $300 in a
Yeah.
suitcase.
Yeah.
Just figured it out, slept on the gym floor, coach as many classes as I could. I would classically go to different high schools and talk to all the coaches and just help for free just so they could see that I really cared. Developed a lot of relationships. Then to speed it up, I basically convinced my wife to change her entire life plan of, climbing the corporate ladder and doing HR, asked her to quit her job, join me, and I promised her that if she did, that we'd never have to worry again, which is a horrible business advice because there's always a little bit of worry. But I knew we could do it. All of her strengths were my weaknesses. So she has a degree in HR, which I do really horrible at, and business
Yeah.
administration,
You're
business
we'll
management.
figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. It's going to be fine. I'm sorry I'm getting some interesting glare on my face here, but
That's all right.
so she goes all in with me in the gym and gets certified, and here I am with this beautiful woman that I know I'm going to marry now, and we're running our own business. We're every night cleaning the gym floors together, working. I'm working. I've been working from 4 or 5 a.m. till 9 at night. Like the first half of my career was all the time. It's all, I mean, it's all I knew. And, we've been so blessed by God for these opportunities. It's turned into multiple locations. The locations are always for growth, always to get better. And then we've been running the gym now successfully for 13 years. There's a lot of crazier stories in there. But in 2013, I was in my gym one day, and I was like, you know what? All I do is drink caffeine or coffee and lift weights. I'm like, maybe there's something to that. So I create this like tank top, and I put it on Instagram of all places, or Facebook, whatever was predominant at that time. And I said, hey, this is my new tank top. Who wants to buy one? It said my life. And it was a coffee cup and a weightlifter. And I just get this like overwhelming response that it was like the coolest idea. And I'm like, I think I have something.
Hey folks, I hope you're enjoying today's episode. Today, this one is sponsored by Eberly Stock. Eberly Stock has been a partner of ours for a really long time. In fact, the founder, Glenn Eberly, is one of my personal friends, a great gentleman. If you don't know much about him, check out the podcast with Glenn Eberly. He is one of the most interesting men I've ever been around. Now, let's talk about Eberly Stock. They are a unique company. They were started from a cockpit of an airplane, and it was all about backpacks for not only backcountry hunters, but also for guys in the military. These backpacks are designed to be modular. That's what the mainframe is. My favorite backpack. You can add pieces to it, take pieces away like scabbards, top packs, side pockets, the whole 9 yards. The bino harness is one of my favorite pieces. You can add to it, you can add side pockets, you can add a rangefinder pocket, you can add a muff to put your hands in when you're glassing, all kinds of stuff. Plus it has that guarantee. They have a massive guarantee on all of their products, all their straps, buckles, zippers, everything. So check them out at eberlystock.com and make sure you tell them Ike sent you.
And so my buddy Dean worked at the gym with me. I worked out at the gym with me. We've known each other since we've been kids. He's always been like super cool, fashion forward guy, like knows what's cool. I just try to be cool. I don't know if I accomplished that, but he like knows what's happening, right? And shorten that up a little bit. I knew California Strength was a really big strength and conditioning gym in San Ramon. I had met Danny Lear, who becomes one of the business partners in this new company from weightlifting. I competed with him. Well, I should say I competed in the same meets as him. He's very good. Later, I got better, but I orchestrated at that time. I knew that connecting weightlifting and CrossFit would be a really big deal. And so we start the company. It's called Caffeine Kilos. And Danny helps with like basically at that time he's the only one who owned a home. So we made him in charge of finance. And then Dean's in charge of what's cool. That's pretty important when it comes to design. And then me, my nickname given to me from Mark Bell is Hustle. Like I will find a way to be in a room and outwork everyone. That's my goal. And so, when it comes to marketing or time or relationships, I already built a lot of those. And so we start Caffeine Kilos. We do just that. We merge weightlifting and CrossFit. And my bigger idea was there is so much division, you know, in strength and conditioning. You have your bodybuilders, your CrossFitters, all these different names. And I said, we're all doing lifting weights and trying to get better. So Caffeine Kilos was really an opportunity to create a really cool tribe of saying we all do something different, yet we're all doing the same thing. And I put a name to it. And our team crushed it. I mean, multi-million-dollar business in less than 2 years. Never seen money like that before, done anything like that. And me and the guys made really cool consumables. Like we had our coffee. We had a really unique way of creating it. We created one of the first all-natural caffeine bars, and it was in the NBA. So like Kevin Durant was eating our bar. We were in like 5 or 6 different teams. There's some wild stuff in there, help host CrossFit Games parties, sponsored some of the best athletes in the world in all different sports. And about 2011 is when I first met Baker, 10 or 11. And then when we were in the same space, Baker's very creative, very interesting, and I like him, but I'm the same. And I think that we've always had this kinship of every now and then we'll just check in. And really what it is, I think sometimes is a good conversation, but finger on the pulse of like, what are you thinking? What's going on? And I would say like all this time, even to me being on this podcast, there's been these opportunities where me and Baker have some pretty cool conversations. And through that, that's where I started to see some cool things happen. And a kind of a big miss for me is when I was exiting Caffeine Kilos. I was our CEO, president, owner, all that stuff. Titles, they're cool, but what's more important is the product and the people. So I learned a lot of business lessons in that. And what I realized from that company was your company is its own identity and its own thing. You are not your company. And so a lot of the ownership I had in certain things is good because I want to do well, but we always need to be erring as business owners on what's most effective for that entity outside of our perspective. And I think that's how you see substantial long-term growth or sustainability is you're thinking about this gift that you've been given and you're not thinking about personal interest, you're thinking about what's best for it. Kind of like having a child, or I
Yeah.
hope that's the approach. Um, and that's what was kind of interesting. So I'm basically um, exiting Caffeine Kilos. Right before I exit, Baker calls me and goes, "Hey, you heard this company, Black Rifle?" I was like, "Yeah, man, pretty cool. They do some crazy stuff." That's when Matt was doing some really crazy marketing. And Baker's like, I don't know, maybe I'm off on this, but I remember Baker saying something possibly like, "We're gonna get like a limousine, go out to Vegas, shoot some things, and we should do this crazy collaboration with Caffeine Kilos and Black Rifle." And I'm like, "Hey, dude, like, I think that's awesome. I don't know if it fits our audience, but at the same time, I think it's super cool." Kind of on my way out. Looking back, that was potentially the biggest miss of not merging at that time or figuring it out. But you learn things. But the cool thing is, me and him had stayed buddies, and it's awesome to see all the things that he's doing now. And I sell Caffeine Kilos. I go over to help Mark Bell, who's a pretty famous podcaster in the powerlifting world or just fitness world. I go over there. He brings me in as like an EVP. So it's the first time I'm not in ownership of a company. I'm still owning the gym at this time. And as I go over there, I was basically there for brand development and kind of helping them launch their apparel, helping them at expo shows have a better demonstration, putting together seminars, and then really like helping with product design. And then one of my specialties is, um, I guess, in the sense marketing, but it's taking an idea and then finding a way to connect that to the group that wants to have it, but then also having the right visual representation of that thing. So that comes down to like logos, imaging, those kinds of things. I guess I have a particular skill in that. And so did a great job there, had a lot of fun. And then that's what started our contract work. Around that same time, I was also bidding on, I'm always doing 50 things. I was bidding on a contract for running the fitness for our city, the city of Elk Grove. And that's what launched me into working in the contract space. So now we have, fast forward to what we're doing now. Um, and then I still do the TV show as well. But with the contract work, we have the city of Elk Grove, had that for 6 years, which includes all city employees, including the law enforcement, our local PD. We have Amador County Sheriff that we help. Specifically, I help primarily their SWAT team. I work with Sheriff Gary Redmond. And then we have Placer County Sheriff's Office, 650 employees, stretches from Sacramento Valley to North Tahoe, which is a pretty big area to cover. I work with their entire organization and really, really awesome people there. We have Consumnes Fire, which is our city's fire and PD are separate. So there's two different entities. So we also picked up the fire department, which has 10 firehouses stretched between two cities.
Wow.
So we run that as well. And so that has been a really, really cool opportunity to look at what these individuals, like to me, real heroes, are doing every single day to keep communities safe. And I'm in these briefings, I'm around all the time. A lot of times in people's communities, you have no idea what's going on. And it's supposed to be that way, but there's a lot of things that happen specifically at night that these individuals are doing a great job of making sure everybody's safe.
Yeah.
So that's kind of up to speed now is contract work, running the gym with my wife and running the TV show.
So with these cities, are you putting together like exercise plans for fire department, which would obviously be different than the PD, which would be different than, the road and bridge crew? Are you putting together, I guess, workout plans and stuff for them specifically on what duties they have?
Yeah, so I'll be as direct as possible with this one. So for the city of Elk Grove, for all city employees, what we do is an overall wellness program. So we're in charge of the entirety of wellness. That includes nutritional, educational, physical fitness, and pretty much mental health as well. And that extends to all employees. So any avenue that someone would want to approach those things, we facilitate. Each one of our contracts is uniquely different because all agencies and entities need different things, but it's always in the spectrum of like a wellness coordinator, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So think of me more as like, and my wife, we run the program, but then it's also upon us to be a broker to bring the right people in to facilitate the job. So there's also a lot of subcontracting to make sure, since we're the experts, we're bringing the right subject matter to be able to perform the needs of that particular entity or thing. For the PD, all the same requirements because they're city employees, but on top of that, specifically for Elk Grove, I work closely with each one of the organizations or each one of the groups or subgroups in there. Like you have, our undercover team, our SWAT team, our patrol, then you have
Right.
shifts, then you have admin. So each one of those individuals and individual groups, we provide the opportunity for them to explore wellness in any capacity, however they want to utilize us. So like I've helped write some of the SWAT PT training, some of the SWAT PT testing. A lot of times I'm taking these people and going out and doing extreme things outside of that, which is a lot of fun. So that's the essence there. When it comes to Amador County Sheriff's Office, what we do specifically over there is I found that within the academy, as you go into law enforcement, there's a system of operations for all things that happen. A lot of times this happens in military as well. So if I go to the academy, I'm learning how to be a police officer. What I'm learning is like, okay, penal codes. Okay, there's a process for penal codes. There's the one, the understanding of them, two, the application of them, and three, you have to write the report on them, right? All those
Right.
things have an order of operations. So going back to like the business background is standing operating procedures help because it creates an opportunity for people to know the plan or the process. Um, from observing what was going on, what I did for Amador was I spoke with Sheriff Redmond and I said, "Hey, what's your standing operating procedure for wellness?" He's like, we exercise and we have these things, but the one doesn't really exist. And I knew it. So that's when the light bulb goes off. I said, I'm going to create for you everything I believe that you would need to know for a sworn officer or anyone in that world of what is like the operations for health. So we talk on nutrition, goal setting, hydration, workout selection, movement selection, why all these things work together, and how and why they happen. And then I give them steps that they could follow. So independent of me, they have the education to continue employing that avenue of fitness. What I've seen classically done, and I understand the why, whether it's intentional or unintentional, is people like to make themselves in my profession needed. I want to be wanted. My goal is to
Ah,
educate. I want you to want me there to help you. I don't want you to need me there to help you. If you need me there to help you, I've done a horrible job as a teacher. And that's what I'm big on is I want to empower people to have the education so that they can make those decisions themselves. So we do that with Amador and some extended training. I went and observed a lot of their SWAT stuff and gave, more of my overview of like, hey, we should probably have this out here, that out here. As you're transitioning from these positions, here are things that are going to light up. Oh yeah, I do notice that, when I'm in pro, my low back is tight. Okay, well, here are exercises or stretches you could do. So I'm just breaking it down from my side of the house. For the fire department, that's the most extensive, which fire, I know there's this joke between police and fire anyways, but like fire gets the most extensive training. We're in the middle of it right now in January where I'm doing full wellness screens. We have a doctor in there, a phlebotomist in there, I'm in there, full health assessments, blood draws, urine samples, fecal, cardiac stress tests, EKGs, like the whole nine. It takes about an hour and a half to get through each person. And there's a lot of them. So, and then there's continued training. And then I'm also have wrote their 6-month academies workout plan with a 10,000-foot view of also the stimuluses that they're going to be in while performing the academy. So I have to understand what is the work requirement that's on that individual during the entire academy, and then what is happening as external forces to their central nervous system outside of that. So summing that up is basically you go to the academy, I have to think about you've never done any of this before. Here's the
right.
movements you're going to be doing for firefighting. There's a stress inoculation because you want to pass the academy. And on top of that, you're probably deconditioned. Well, if I give you some horrendous workout to prove toughness on the same day, we just beat the crap out of you the day before, I'm going to cause an injury. Well, if I'm in the wellness business, that's not wellness, right? So there needs to be some intelligent design on how we approach helping these individuals. And which is funny is I'm a huge component of you need to be tough. Like that, I'm very empathetic. My wife believes I have no empathy. I do, but I will hold people. If you tell me you're doing something or we signed up for something, you tell me, then we're doing it. It's just how it goes, right?
Mhm.
And so there's this line I have to play where, we have to be able to present this information to these individuals where we're caring and passionate, but at the same time, uh, it's not just your life, it's my family's life if you're coming to get my boy in a burning house. So this has real relevance to why right now we're doing 50 lunges. You need leg strength, right? So
Right.
that's kind of fun with the fire department. Placer County Sheriff's Office, we do everything, full wellness program. So basically, it's like contract work that is, I would say it's more of like a, not to sound bougie or anything, but it's more of like a boutique system, right? Like whatever you need, I can do it. So if your department needs X, Y, and Z, I will put it together. And it's just being resourceful and then also understanding who it is that you're giving this information to and what those external forces are that are at play in their lives. And what is that? We look back to, I'm a man of faith. You look back to this, I need to care about the person. And that person has a life outside of their job. Okay. So what external forces are going on in their life or potentially are going on in their life that they're bringing to work that they're also dealing with? All of those things affect their productivity, affect their mental state, and ultimately protects their performance. And if we're talking about law enforcement, my opportunity to create an impact is very beneficial not only to the officer but to our community, because if you're able to use lethal force because your life's in danger, if that threshold is because you're deconditioned, you're already putting that other individual at a disadvantage. I will also say this: if you are a criminal and you are fighting a police officer and you know they have the capability of using lethal force if their life's in danger, don't be surprised when you get shot. So I have the blue, I back the blue, but at the end of the day, too, I try to also put that responsibility back on our officers like, hey, you're carrying a weapon and the weapon also could be used against you. Let's look at it the other way. You get in a fight, someone gets a hold of your firearm, now you're dead.
Yeah.
So it's a very, in that world, sorry to get a little serious, it's a very real circumstance we're dealing with every day with first responders on the importance of why they need to be able to not only be physically fit but mentally fit. Like, where's our cognitive decision making, right? And you look at those individuals, and a lot of it sometimes is very hard because they're sleep deprived. That's what most people don't know, is a lot of them are operating on very little sleep, and they're only responding to phone calls when crap's popping off.
Yeah.
So, it's I have a real big heart for it, and um, I have a uniqueness that allows me to be able to work with these individuals because they know I am who I say I am. And a lot of people try to go in there in my field and they'll see some of the stuff that we do and they go, they want to be the trainer that proves that they're tougher in PT than the SWAT guy. I hope you are. It's what you do every single day. That guy also has to shoot. He also has to apply meds. He also has to make critical tackle decisions. Like, you can't do any of that. So you're going to beat him in a workout. With most of
Yeah.
the guys, I don't even train with them unless they ask, because that's my job.
So, so you're basically uh, to put it in a sports analogy, you're the trainer for the team that is the law enforcement, the fire department. You're the trainer
Yeah,
as if you were the trainer for an NFL football team. You're the guy
yeah,
that individually goes, well, you're having this problem. Here's what you need to do.
yes,
And the next guy, you're having this problem. Here's what you need to do. And then collectively, you all need to be doing this.
yes.
That's really, really, really cool. Yeah, it's got to be the first time that anyone's ever done that, on a large scale with a community.
I believe so. It's really hard. My biggest fault sometimes is pride, and I appreciate you saying that. I am proud of the fact of the opportunity I have. I don't believe there's anyone in the world better at me than what I'm doing, and that's
That's
because the
awesome.
uniqueness of who I am as a person. You can't do it like me. I am me. You might do it better your way, but I know how I do it, and I'm getting results, and I really care. And if I'm in an opportunity where I'm going to experience some growth, which means I make a mistake, guess what? Won't happen again. But I'm
Yeah.
willing to make mistakes because I know the intent of my heart and I know that I want to help. I think that people get afraid. There's a really cool quote from President Roosevelt, Man in the Arena. And a lot of people want to make fun or poke or say, well, hey, this didn't work or that didn't work or this or that. But you know what? I'd rather be in that arena with my ass kicked, trying to figure it out, specifically trying to serve and help the individuals that are helping, our communities.
Yeah.
Hey, sign me up to make some mistakes, right? Because I'll tell you what, I'm going to fix it. But where my heart's coming from is a place of love and compassion, and that's to me one of the coolest things. Yeah, it's fun. I'm gonna give you one more thing. I apologize. I had to tell
That's
you
okay.
this because I told
Yep.
Scott this. Kind of a cool story about God's provision on my life and what I'm doing. When I was 19 years old, in the middle of that first part of the story, I was also playing football at Sacramento City College, which is a cool college, but I was not making sound decisions. I don't need to get into all those, but a lot of them were illegal activities. And it wasn't that I was necessarily doing them, I was just around people that were. And I caught myself in a situation where I had a buddy of mine who wasn't playing football at that time. He was just a friend of mine, had a girlfriend cheat on him, and became pretty irate that this individual went to his house. And so, being a good friend, I said, hey, you're acting crazy. I'm old school. That's why my dad raised me. Just go kick his ass and then leave, right? Just fight him, like that's, I hate that, but that's how I was raised, right?
Right.
My dad said, if you get in a fight, whoop his ass or don't come home. So that's my background, right? So I'm
Right.
like, all right, dad kicked in, settle it, dude. If you cheat on your girlfriend, I think there's probably bigger problems there because it takes two to tango, but we can go solve this. So jump in his car, go to this guy's house. He tries to call the guy out. The guy doesn't come out. I'm like, all right, man, let's just get out of here. He goes back in the vehicle, grabs a baseball bat, and starts teeing off on this guy's car. Completely destroys it. Every window, starts smashing
Oof.
it. And I realized at that moment, I am in the wrong place at the wrong time. But you also get a little scared because you're young and you're like, I don't know what to do.
Right.
End up finding an opportunity to get the guy back in the car and lead Elk Grove Police Department, whom I work with now, on probably a 5-car chase all through Elk Grove. And, you know, being raised as like late 80s, early 90s, I rode my bike everywhere. I know every back road in my city. So I'm basically navigating all through Elk Grove, trying to stay ahead of these police cars. And guess what? They know I'm better than me. They found me.
Can't outrun
and
the radar.
yeah, so they get me in office. This is the story that I've never told on something like this. Officer pulls us over. I'm in the driver's seat. They ask all of us to get out, ask to get identification. As they're getting my identification, the guy goes, Charlie Zamora. I said, yes, sir. He said, your father, Arnie Zamora? And I said, yes, sir. He said, come with me. Pulls me aside to his car, separate me and the other guy. He said, you're going to tell me the truth one time. It's your only time telling me the truth. Better stick with it. I said, okay. What happened? Tell him the whole story. He goes, okay. He said, is there anything in that vehicle that's going to harm any of my officers if we go in there? That car's going, it's getting impounded and your buddy's going to go to jail. You might be going to jail too. Is there anything in that car that's going to hurt my officer? I said, hey, told you I jumped in this car and drove it. I have no clue. As I'm saying that, they're pulling out swords, knives, all this
Oh my
thing out of my
gosh.
back of my buddy's truck. And I'm like, I'm going to jail. What is going on? Puts me in the back of his car, drives me to the residence that I'm living at, which was my brother-in-law at the time. He looks at me. He goes, everyone makes mistakes. Tonight was a mistake. He said, but I'm going to give you a second chance because I believe in you. He's like, never do anything like this again. Change your life. Figure it out. And I'm like, I don't, am I going to, I don't know, right? And I'm
Wow.
like, so I'm praying, like, thank you, God. Thank you, God. And I'm walking up to my doorway. I'm a hard worker, but I'm also simultaneously pretty dumb. I have another thing with me. So I turn around and I look at him and I said, I have one thing. And he looked at me like, are you kidding me? Like, I just let
Yeah,
you off
right now.
right now. I said, yes, I have one thing. And this goes to show you, who I was raised by. I said, just don't tell my dad. I was like, all I cared about at that point, like, I'm home free, but then my thought process went off. I'm like, he knows
I
my
ain't home
dad.
free yet.
This is going to be worse, than going to jail. And probably more just disappointment, right? Like, I'm a grown man. He's not going to try. Well, he could have tried to fight me, but like, it was just more the disappointment of like hearing that. He looks at me and
Right.
says, you promised to change your life. I never will. Okay. Fast forward, you know, as I run my business, I go to so many camps, talk to so many kids. Because at first I started in youth training. Hey, someone took a chance on me, wrong place, wrong time. I mean, I've given this speech in person hundreds of times, and it's
Yeah.
what changed that trajectory of my life. I'm telling the story 2 years ago at the Elk Grove Police Department in a room full of brass, which are upper administration.
Right.
And I'm sitting there, and I still to this day didn't know, or to that day didn't know who it was, because there's a lot going on, right?
Right.
So I'm sitting there, and it's like all of our top people, and it was during an exercise, and I'm telling the story, and I'm like, and look now, like I'm working here. This just goes to show like how good God is, and people could change their life. And I look over, I was like, man, the only person that's known me this long or known my dad is Brian. And like when I said it, I realized, oh shoot, it was Brian, this guy
You're
that I work
kidding
with,
me.
Brian Shoft. He's still there. What's crazier is he is like very high up. And guess who's the direct person I report to?
Him.
Brian Shoft. Him. He's in charge of all the wellness. So technically he's my boss. Like in that contract. He just smiles. And I said, Brian, you never told my dad. He said, you never screwed up again. And I was like, oh, like, I kind of, at that moment, I give him a big hug. But, I've never told that story. And so some people now look at me working with all these entities and they're like, oh, he must have been straight laced the whole time. I was like, no, I made a lot of mistakes. But at the end of the day, someone took a chance on me. And we think about that and we think about the opportunity to extend grace. Um, he knew the impact he was going to have, or at least he hoped what he was going to have. But look what that did, not only for me, but then how God was able to use me to help so many other people to where now I'm working with that organization and multiple organizations doing a very positive thing. So I don't forget that and the
Yeah.
power that someone can have.
And yeah, he gave you grace because he looked at the data points that he knew, because he knew your dad, he knew who you were. He knew this is out of the norm. You're a 19-year-old kid. All of us were 19-year-old kids. We all did dumb things at 19. He knew that this was out of the norm. This wasn't an everyday occurrence, and he was able to change your life. And in the back of your mind for the last almost 20 years, you've been thinking about how you can repay that, and you're doing it now with a unique situation with the public, utilities and fire department and the police department, and making a difference to them that's never been done before. That is an amazing. That's when you go, that's divine. God exists because of things like that. There's no way that's happenstance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, one other crazy thing that it definitely, I mean, I always knew it was God, but it provides example, remains nameless because of, he's asked me to. One of my really good friends from the CrossFit space, our families are really close. I just knew him as a CrossFit person. One day I'm in San Diego. He gives me a phone call. I didn't even know how he knew I was in San Diego. He says, I see you're in San Diego. I want to show you what I do for work. I go, hey man, I know what you do for work. He goes, come meet me in my house this time. Show up to his house in Imperial Beach. We drive over to Naval Special Warfare Coronado. We go through the gates. We walk in. He goes, what do you think? I said, I think this is pretty cool, man. Like, what do you do? He's like, I run this program for the SEALs teams. I'm the strength conditioning coach. Then
Wow.
gives me a tour of NSW. I've been there a few times now, spent a lot of time with him. And he showed me operationally how they get teams ready for deployment, how they work with their psyche, the mental health, the nutrition, the exercise, all of these things. So not only did God put me in a position to do that, he took someone that was already in my life as well, that does it at the highest level to then educate me on how to help these people. So not only did he give me the chance, he gave me the equipment and the tools, but what it
Right.
really came down to is the work. Was I willing to follow through and do what I was supposed to do? You look at the parable of talents, like God's going to give you things. What are you going to do with it? And that's one of the things that I think about pretty much daily, is not only the opportunities I'm given, but the opportunity that I have to work and do something with it.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. That's actually, I was supposed to ask you, and it probably came from Scott, what happened about with the arrest and all that stuff. So that was one of the
Yeah.
questions I was going to ask you. That's really cool. So I don't want to take a ton. You're a busy guy, and you've been up since 2:30. Swimming, was it 500 meters? Is that what you did this morning?
Yeah, not successfully, but I finished.
Well,
Um,
success. You finished that successfully.
yeah, but a good time would have been 9 minutes, so I was off. by 4, but I didn't drown.
You didn't drown. It was cold. It looked cold. I saw the post.
Yeah. Well, before that, I was working out for an hour and ran a mile listening to your podcast.
Oh, geez.
I was doing some research, and I thought, if this is tough swimming in this pool, he said his grandfather landed a plane on slush and slept out there for multiple days, and then was rewarded by a relationship with these Eskimo people. Like, I could swim.
Yeah. Wait till you see. So Black Rifle just did they're about to release it in the coming days. They did so Fieldcraft does a thing with Black Rifle. It's survival stories.
Yeah.
And so they did one. Of course, my grandfather passed away in 96. So they had to come here and sat down with my brother and my dad and I and looked at all the old footage and all the old artifacts and stuff. And they put together that story. It is unbelievable. I watched it for the first time yesterday. It's crazy what those guys did and how they survived and stuff. And you're 100% right. By doing that, he was blessed with the opportunity to hang out with the Eskimos and document their way of life before it got changed with, electricity and gasoline and everything else. It's so cool. But so I don't want to take my point was I don't want to take too much of your time. I know you're a busy guy, but I do have a couple questions that I ask everybody. And the first one is, why do you hunt? What is a, you said you're kind of new to the whole hunting scene. What's attractive to you about hunting?
First thing that attracted me to it is I feel that every man should know how to hunt. I think that's important. I think that is like a male birthright. You should figure that one out. And right now, life is so easy for so many people. I'm out here in California. I live in a small suburb outside of Sacramento, and we have opportunities to go and hunt, but it's not like it's around us all the time. And as I was examining a lot of the people that understand hard work, you talk about hunters, wrestlers, these different kinds of people that engage in activities that are very physically demanding. Um, in a way, and in essence, it's manhood. And I've been tough in a gym for a long time, and I try to create mental toughness, but the opportunity to have to intelligently design an approach to harvest an animal and the actions required to do it, um, to me is kind of exhilarating because it's not easy. I don't understand it. I'm becoming familiar with it. But even if it's waterfowl, it's, getting up before the sun, putting out deeks, making sure everything's set up. Before you even got there, you're doing coffee, you're checking the guns, you're getting things ready. Like, that process, to me, the process driven early morning, and then the camaraderie of being with other men and having that time. I think, from all the stuff that I do for work, I like to use the word mindset. People might take this the wrong way. In essence, I'm saying mental health, but I call it mindset training. Most males will not engage, and I don't want to just, I'm speaking from experience. I'm a male, right? So this is what I'm saying. I'm sure that females can have the same experience, but from my experience, for males specifically, um, most guys aren't just going to call each other and ask how you're doing. Some people do, and that's very nice. But the opportunity for there to be um, conversation that is more in depth and more meaningful has happened during hunting or hunting trips. And for most men, it doesn't have to happen frequently, but I think that's the reset and the recharge that they need in that communal environment to where they can go back and keep busting ass in their job and in their marriage and with their kids because they've been refreshed either from the fact that everyone's probably dealing with the same stuff and or that someone that's a little bit older has some insight or some wisdom of, hey, been there, done that, try this. And I think that hunting just provides this really cool environment for, just like I said, for what I've experienced, I've only hunted with men, that like for these guys, you can go out and almost experience a form of serenity doing work together, but then also forging and building bonds. And I don't think that enough of those environments exist for men. And I have to find them because I'm trying to help people. But hunting has been one of those things that I encourage a lot of our first responders or anyone that I help at my gym, like, hey, it might be hard, but you should try it. It's pretty cool. It might be hard, but that's a good thing. So
Yeah.
that's what I've enjoyed about hunting and getting into it. Also, that there could be opportunities to go out and nothing happens, and you're really jacked up about, getting a bird or whatever it is, and like just doesn't work out. So that when you do harvest that animal and you have that opportunity, you're like, wow, okay, I did it. I think that's also what makes it cool, is it doesn't just happen every time.
Yeah.
Or at least that's
It's
what
part of
I've
that
experienced.
mental health, that mental toughness. And you're right, it's camaraderie that you wouldn't get any other place because of the lack of distractions and the ability to, have a common goal and take advantage of that goal. I've said for decades that the best relationships are built in a hunting camp or fishing, both very similar activities, but the best relationships that last the span of time were built or maintained that way.
I agree.
That's awesome. So, this one's pretty deep, and I know I know you're a man of faith, so this will be, I'm going to try and explain it in a unique way. On your deathbed, God willing, you have the opportunity to be on a deathbed, and it doesn't happen instantly, getting hit by the proverbial bus. But on your deathbed, what is Charlie Zamora going to be thinking about? What are the things that are important to you that you want to make sure that when you're on your deathbed, you're like, I accomplished that. I did do that.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. My automatic answer would that I would live a life that was pleasing to God, but that's why he came down and died on that cross, because I can't.
Yeah.
Um, if if you really want to know the truth, I have the opportunity to try to help a lot of people, and I'm blessed to have that opportunity. But I was just talking to my wife recently, and you look at ownership and responsibility and all these things, and I was telling my wife, sometimes when I get home I'm tired, and sometimes when I get home I'm a little flat because I'm taking a lot in. I'm hearing a lot of things, helping people through stuff, and I'll say that sometimes I don't have the same energy. And I had someone tell me before, um, remember who you committed to first. And so if I was so intentful on taking care of my business contracts, but I really neglected my family, I don't think that's a great mark of who I am as a person. Everyone has their limitations, everyone has their things they struggle with. But if I'm on my deathbed, the one thing I want to make sure I did was lead my family in a way to where they knew that I love them and that they were loved by God. And I think that hopefully my actions would provide an opportunity where my wife knows that and my boys know that. And that's really who I want to have the impact on. That's my core. That's what God has given me the stewardship over. And it's a blessing every day to have an amazing wife. And it's a blessing every day to have my two boys. And I can't overlook the fact that they're always going to be there. That's what people think, that your family just always loves you, and they will. That's probably the group that you need to be the most focused on and having intentful leadership. Now, I'm working on it. I think everyone's working on it. But if I'm on my deathbed, I just hope that I'd be able to say they knew I loved them, and they knew that they had a relationship with God. Because you think about your time here on Earth, which is a blimp, and then you think about eternity. And just raising my kids right and loving my wife is very important to me.
Yeah, that's amazing. I tell my kids that a lot, that I was placed on this earth for a number of things, but one of the number one thing is to make sure that they have a relationship with God. I mean, it is in there, and it is not the mother's responsibility. He placed that on the father. That is the father's responsibility to make sure that God is in the home and that they have a relationship with him. That's amazing. That's a
Yeah,
really good answer, because you're right. We all work on it every single day. It's not, it's not like, oh yeah, I do this. I'm good at that. If you're good at that, you're probably not doing something else that you should be doing as well, or you're
yeah,
or you're you're lying to yourself more than likely.
yeah. And it feels good sometimes to do that.
Yep.
But you know what
Yep.
we do? Men, you try as hard as you
Yep.
can. That's all
Yep.
you can do is try.
That's right. So the last one's a little bit lighter and more fun. If you were to have the opportunity to do a TED talk, the 4-minute talk, what would it be on? What would you
Power,
consider yourself an expert enough to talk for 4 minutes and somebody would get something out of?
the power of choice.
Power of choice.
Power of
Explain
choice.
that a little
And
bit.
okay, so I went to a seminar one time with a guy named Greg Amundsen, old school CrossFit guy. I believe he was Santa Cruz sheriff, and he does a lot of amazing things. Does a lot of contract work as well. And one of the things he introduced me to that I kind of have built upon is that there's a pyramid. Your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your character becomes your destiny. We have two choices, and that's really it. You choose to be positive, see the world in a positive way, or you can be negative. In any and each thing that happens to you in your life, you have two decisions. And when you think about the power of choice, you can't control what happens to you, but you can control your response. And so what I tell people is we don't minimize the pain that something that causes you, but you're in control how long you want to stay there, and you're in control of how you feel about it, right? You got to be able to
Yeah.
work through those responses. And so when we look at this, if we're using thoughts, right? Whatever I think continuously is what I'm going to manifest with my words. And let's take this to hunting, right? So I was having an issue in the beginning with shooting animals that were moving. Didn't know that I was supposed to continue moving my rifle, right? Little things you learn. Well, if I got into my head that I just can't hit a duck ever, and I'm always saying that every time we go out to hunt and someone goes, "Hey man, how you doing waterfowl?" What am I going to say? I can't
Can't
drop a
hit
duck.
anything.
I can't hit anything. Okay. So then I say that. I thought that. I say that. Then we go out to hunt. What do you think I'm going to do? Miss a bunch of ducks. Right.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, I'm doing this repeatedly. So it's habit forming. So guess what happens every time I go hunting? I miss a bunch of ducks. Ultimately, what we do habitually over and over again is a demonstration of our character, who we are. So I become the guy that misses, right? So what's my destiny? No harvest. Okay.
Yeah.
But within that, I could have also said, they're like, hey, my thought process, it could start out with, man, I keep missing these ducks, but you know what? I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to get the next one. Right. So someone asked me, hey, what's going on? You know what? I've been missing, but I feel like I'm going to be able to put it together. Okay, that's then that verbal emission comes out. Then we go out there and we're shooting. I miss, right? Get myself back in that positive mindset. Well, I probably need some coaching. Hey, why am I missing these birds? Hey man, like I watch your muzzle, like you're not following your shot and you got to put it out in front. Oh man, I was shooting where they were at. Yeah, you're behind them. Oh, okay. Now I understand the problem. Now I can fix it. All of a sudden, next bird, boom, stone them. Holy cow, wholly different, trajectory, right?
Right.
But where did it start? Upstairs. The power of thought. You are in control of your thoughts. The attitude and effort in which you conduct yourself, whether it's positive or negative, little effort or a big effort, you're in control. There's a lot of things in life we're not in control of. Power of thought, you are in control of. Even if you have a negative thought, who's in control of removing it? You are. Power of thought. And thoughts become words, the verbal emission. Words become actions. It's what you do. Actions become habits. You do it continuously. And then that is going to be able to form into your character, which leads you towards your destiny.
That is so insightful. That the positive versus the negative is one of the things that I think humans we struggle with every single day, every minute of the day, in fact, because you're being affected by everything. And I've never been told in such a great way of how that pyramid ends, that just because you have a negative aspect of this, you could be changing your destiny down the road by making a negative thought on whatever you're being affected by. That's unbelievable, Charlie. That's awesome thoughts.
I appreciate it. And I appreciate the opportunity that you found value in talking to me. I found extreme value in talking to you. I was so excited. A lot of my buddies, and I'll mention them now, Travis Simus, Andy, like all my buddies, Lucas, all these guys that got like we're already hunting when I was kids. I called my buddy Travis up and I said, hey man, you ever heard of this guy? He goes, what'd you do? And he goes, dude, he's like, they've been around forever. That's like one of the top companies. Da, da, da. I was like, yeah, I'm on his podcast on Friday. He's like, oh man, he's like, you always find a way. And so I just appreciate it that you found interest to talk to me. And I am fully aware of the magnitude of what your family's contributed for generations in the hunting world. And although I'm an infant in it, I am just so honored and humbled that you took the time to talk to me. And I'm going to make it my priority to continue learning about your family and everything that y'all stand for. So I really appreciate you and your time.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. I get to stand on shoulders of giants, and I was just blessed with that. And I'm just trying to keep the flag going in the right direction. So thank you very
It's
much for.
working.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thanks for your time, Charlie. I know you're a busy guy, and I hope to, hopefully one of these days we get to bump into each other. Maybe sit around a campfire in a duck blind or something and hang
Yeah.
out. If you're friends with Baker, I'm sure that's going to happen because Baker, as you know, is the most well-connected person in the outdoor space.
Yeah. And apparently you said that I wouldn't have a problem shooting an antelope. So I'm going to figure that out.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. You and Scott get together. We'll get you a tag out here and we'll do that. That antelope hunting is a blast. It's tons and tons of animals. You get to see a ton of stuff. Tags are a little hard to find, but yeah, it could be a blast. Let's do that for sure.
Yeah. I listen when people talk, man. You said antelope and you have more chances. That's my kind of hunting.
And you'll figure it out.
You'll figure it out. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good rest of your day, man.
Yes, sir. Have a great day.
Thanks.